comparisons on him across the board.
Yeah, let me ask Todd McShay, who joins us now of The Ringer. You can read all his great work at the McShay Report. You can hear all the draft analysis that he's doing in the lead-up and thereafter. They've got a great live draft show that they're preparing. I'm told it's out of Ryan Russillo's house, potentially in Los Angeles, which I'm sure is lovely. Todd McShay joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Todd, how do you go about draft comps when you're watching players?
I guess you draw on a lot of experience, and then and I think sometimes you kind of, I don't want to say the jumping off point is heights and weights and maybe arm lengths for certain positions and 40 times, but you certainly don't want to be so far off on those things. And then, I don't know, you kind of go through your mental Rolodex, if you will, and try to figure out, like, who does he remind you of, And sometimes it's trickier than others.
Yeah, and it's just so interesting to see the variety, right, of where people's football Rolodex takes them. Nate Tice was on the show a couple of weeks ago. We were just talking about it, called Cam Ward Diet Coke Steve McNair, which made me laugh. And also, I understood what he was talking about when you see.
I've heard a lot of Steve McNair. I don't think it's a terrible. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't like comps with quarterbacks for some reason. I feel like it's such a intimate evaluation, and there's so much nuance to it. Every guy's a little different, and then you kind of peg him as one thing and you're expecting one thing. I think it's different with the rest of the positions. Quarterbacks everyone's kind of their own entity, if you will.
So what sets Cam Ward apart to you then? What makes him an individual?
To me, when I just kind of sit back and think about all the tape I studied, every throw I've studied, every scramble and ability to extend plays, I think a couple things set him apart from most others. I think, and I don't hear people talking about it a lot, I think one of the most underappreciated aspects of what he does, because people like to talk about, nonchalant in the pocket, and, everyone likes to show like the little clips of him just kind of standing there as if he's hanging out in 7-on-7 and all that. I think the thing that goes unnoticed is he has an unworldly sense of when pressure is coming, and the poise combined with that to wait for it. He knows at a tick before he's going to react to it. He knows it's coming from the front side, the back side, interior. You can tell he knows when it's coming because he likes to wait to the last second to elude it, because then you're vulnerable as a defender. Other quarterbacks, if you really study it, a lot of quarterbacks, when they know it's coming or they sense it, at that same point where he decides to wait a tick so that he can get that defender kind of off balance. And I heard you guys talking about Mahomes. It is kind of a similar trait. Neither's a beautiful athlete. Neither's going to run a great 40 time if you clock him right now. But there's this instinctive aspect to their game where, okay, go ahead, take one or two more steps towards me, because if you do, then I got you off balance. And then I'm going to pull the trigger on the move that I already know I'm going to make. And I think that goes kind of, I don't want to say unnoticed, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about that aspect of his game. And so much of his game is that ability to kind of elude a defender and then and make a great throw on the move. The second part that I think is, and he's not unique to it, but he's in a small group of people that can throw as accurately as he does from different arm angles. And then the thing I think that, because we get so enamored with the highlights, with Cam Ward, when you get him to the top of his drop and he plants that right foot and he's in rhythm with the receiver, he's an absolute freaking assassin. If the receiver's where he's supposed to be and he knows where he wants to go with the ball in terms of throwing a receiver open, hitting a spot, when it's all in rhythm, and I think that's as Tennessee dug into this, and Brian Callahan's watching, and you're watching through whatever lens is important for you, right? And so Callahan and the offensive staff for Tennessee is watching through the lens of, okay, here's what we do. Here's what we're going to need him to do within the structure of our offense. When he does that at Miami, like I said, he's an assassin.
It's one of my favorite terms at this time of year, arm arrogance. Todd McShay here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You can check out the newsletter, The McShay Report. You can check out the podcast, The McShay Show. excellent draft analysis all year long there from Todd and the crew.
Todd, it's always fun at this point, 2 weeks out, to look back at the narratives around the top of the draft, the day the NFL regular season ended, and kind of where we are now, right on the cusp of the first round. And it felt like the narrative was, oh, it's not a good year to have the number 1 overall pick and have a need at quarterback. And Cam Ward, it seems like, has kind of risen above that school of thought a little bit. Did you ever really buy into that narrative from the jump, and where are you on it now?
I thought as a group, because I had a lot of people that aren't in the league reaching out to me as they were starting to dig all of into all these players. Like, is this class as bad as like that Kenny Pickett? You know, the Willis year? Like, is this, you know, because I don't see guys. And I think two things happened. I think, first of all, people kind of got into the process late and looked at it and started just kind of like, everyone's like, oh, it's not any good. And the second part of it is we're coming off of a year in 2024 where, like, we might look back and say that was up there like 1983 and some of the great, you know, quarterback classes that we've ever talked about in the draft. When you get a Jaden Daniels at pick number 2 and is one of the best players in the NFL a year ago, and Drake May, the promise that he shows, we know the talent's there with Caleb Williams, and hopefully for his sake and Bears fans that he'll have the development and take those necessary steps forward with Ben Johnson coming in and the protection that they've brought in the offensive line. And then you go down like Michael Penix, when we saw him play, really, really good, promising stuff. J.J. McCarthy, we don't know, but what I do know, coming off that injury and based off the Michigan tape, and most importantly with KOC, Kevin O'Connor, he's kind of the quarterback whisperer in the NFL right now. And then Bo Nix, what he did as a rookie is the 6th quarterback taken in the top 12. So we're coming off that year, and it's kind of skewed. I think the biggest narrative change, quite honestly, is this like 2-horse race of Cam Ward and Shedeur, when I always viewed it as like Cam's kind of, not always, I shouldn't say that. That would be, false. But as I really dug in, as the season started to end and really got into the quarterback, breakdowns, it was very clear that the traits were different and the potential was different with Cam. I think a lot of people too were skewed by the fact he was like a 4th, 5th rounder coming into the last year. Like people in the league across the board, day 3, and so it's hard to make that jump. But Jaden Daniels made that jump, and a lot of guys we've talked about in recent years. But I always viewed it kind of the competition being that 2nd, 3rd quarterback. Jackson Dart and Shedeur. And Tyler Shuck's a lot better than I anticipated when I dug into his tape at the end of the year, because we had 6 years of him bouncing around, getting injured, and not playing. But that dude can play. He's bigger than all these guys, faster on the straight line than all these guys, as strong or stronger arm than all these guys. But he's 25, and he's had some injuries. So this quarterback class is nothing like a few years ago with the Kenny Pickett year. It's somewhere in between, and I don't want to say a lot closer to last year, but it's not nearly as bad as some people thought it was initially.
And then there's Jaylen Milroe, right? Who's just this sort of polarizing figure.
Can you guys believe he's going to the draft?
No.
Well, that's we were talking about it yesterday.
We had a whole hour on it yesterday, Todd. I'm trying to figure out who the hell is talking to his agent.
I went back last year because I remember there were 13 guys drafted. I bet 13 guys that accepted invites to the draft. A couple other guys got invitations, turned it down, wanted to be with their family. 13 players were accepted invites and were in Detroit for the draft last year. And the league really doesn't want it. It's great TV, yes, but it's just it's a bad look for the league to have the Brady Quinn situations, Aaron Rodgers, and most recently, as I say, Will Levis, right? And it's not good for anyone, This isn't a reality TV show where we're trying to shame people, okay? And so they trimmed it down 13 players last year. And I remember like Darius Robinson coming out of Missouri. I liked him in the first round, but I wasn't getting like a consensus from the league. He was a fringe guy. And I had heard the reports coming out of the New York offices that they really wanted to make sure that we didn't have a guy who had to, and I've been in the TV truck after the first night of the draft, and I've had the production meetings the next morning before day 2 of the draft, where they're, like the production group and the reporters are talking to the moms or dads of the family, like, they went home, or they're going to come back. It's nothing that they want. So Darius Robinson was the 13th of the 13 players, and he wound up going 27. And I remember when he was drafted, I was like, The league knew, right? All 13 players drafted in the top 27 picks last year. And so when Jaylen Milroe gets selected and the information coming out of New York this year was we're going to trim the fat even more. We're talking 8-10 players this year. And Milroe's on that list. I'm not saying it's a lock. The vast majority of people I talk to in the league have day 2 grades on him. And some have grades that just, not, I wouldn't be proud to kind of mention. But what he has in terms of his elite skill set, that 4.39, that Georgia game with the running ability, is probably better than anyone else's elite skill set that they have in this quarterback class. And so as a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator, and you look at like Joe Milton and the value, you're not drafting a guy in the late first or second round to just go trade him for a late round pick again. But my point is, I think there are plenty of people in the league that coach these guys that say there's more there than maybe with some other guys. Let's take a flyer, maybe move back into the first round, or let's see if he's there early in the second round. Let's sit him. Yeah, I think people talk about Jalen Hurts. People talk about Lamar Jackson just because of the speed and the athletic ability. I think it's a little bit more like Vince Young in terms of where he is developing, processing, accuracy, but elite running ability. But the problem with Vince Young is he was a 3rd overall pick, as you guys well know, and he had to play right away. With Milroe, you get to bring him in and sit him down, sit him in the back. Nicest dude of all time. Find me a person in Tuscaloosa or anywhere else that doesn't like the human being. So he's going to kind of take a back seat, develop, quietly do his thing, go about his work, and maybe in a year or 2, you've got something special there.
Todd McShay of The Ringer is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Check out The McShay Show. Subscribe, rate, review wherever you get your podcast. Check out The McShay Report, the newsletter that has all manner of great draft analysis as a part of it.
We got the Mock 3.0 coming out tomorrow.
Oh, baby.
Now's a good time to subscribe.
Get in there.
I had a shameless plug.
Hey, buddy, you're in the plug business. You're talking to sports talk radio people like we have an issue plugging things.
Wait, is that the last one? How many mock drafts is too many mock drafts, Todd?
3.0 out of 4. Yeah, I made a decision. We got up to like 6 or 7. Kuiper was making stuff up. Like, let's do a mock where we alternate picks. Let's do a 3-round mock where we play the GM. Like, I decided when I transitioned to this new career, or same career, same business, but new venture, that nobody needs more than 4 mocks leading up to a draft. Let's make them good and worthwhile rather than quality over quantity, I guess.
I agree with that assessment, except in the NFL draft, where I think as much quantity as you can get in the draft leads you to the better chance of quality with as many draft picks as this team has whiffed on in the last couple of years. Todd, the most difficult, no, there's no such thing. I mean, there are clean evaluations in the world, right, when you're scouting these players. And I only know from the perspective of talking to scouts or coaches to that effect that very rarely do you get a bunch of clean evaluations throughout the course of the pre-draft process. But who has been the most difficult prospect in this class for you to evaluate? Whom have you really struggled with?
The hard part, like, let's go through the edge rushers real quickly. It is like we're going to have more defensive linemen drafted in the first 3 rounds by like 5, 6, or 7 than we've ever had before. I went back 30 years. It was 26 was the most in a given year. Interior and edge guys. This group is loaded. It's loaded at edge in the first round. There's a bunch more guys later in the second and third. It's loaded along the interior. But with the edge guys, it's like there's a bunch of buts. And you hate as a scout and an evaluator to like you said, like when it's not clean, right? And so like Abdul Carter, arguably the best player in this draft, but I don't love the fact, and you're nitpicking here, and he's going to be just fine, but there's the shoulder and the foot injury and his undersized and only 1 year at edge. Jalen Walker, is he a tweener or is he the next Hassan Reddick or Nolan Smith? Then you get down like Mike Green, some off the field stuff that he addressed at the combine. Played at Marshall, didn't play at Alabama against or Georgia. James Pierce, as you guys know in your backyard, I would argue he's the second best edge in this class, second best pass rusher in this class, but he's got some stuff and some football character stuff, and so there's a lot of guys that you struggle with. You see the talent and you want it to just be about the talent. And even like the cleanest guys, right? Like people were like almost in tears talking about the interviews with Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama. Yeah. I talked to a GM the day before they worked out. And it was like, I don't care where you got him rated. He's going higher than that. I don't care that he's a guard. Like, I want to sleep really well after the first night of the draft. And I'll do that knowing I just got a 10-year starter with maybe the best character of any player we've ever seen. Then he goes out and has the worst combine workout of any player along the offensive line. So every guy's got something. Nobody's perfect. But I think those edge rushers became, and Shamar Stewart, right? Shamar Stewart is like Trayvon Walker type workout numbers. Is he the next Danielle Hunter, or is he a guy who's never going to be productive? Just 1.5 sacks last year, but 33 quarterback hurries. And so there's a lot of that goes on. And then this time of year, there's all sorts of noise coming from propping guys up from agents and beating guys down because scouts were on the road for 4 months and they're frustrated and nobody can play anymore. So it's just, you got to kind of block out the noise at this point. And that's why I wrapped up all the evaluations and just kind of doing our thing now.
No, nobody can play. Nobody can tackle. That's the one that I hear quite a bit. I'm sure
no one can. No safety can tackle in this class, and no linebacker can get off a block. It's a different world we live in.
Seems important.
Yeah.
Todd McShay here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Check out the McShay Report Mock Draft 3.0 coming your way in the not too distant future. Where do you expect this draft to kind of take a turn? I know that's a difficult thing to predict, and just based on what you're hearing, Todd, and there's so many different things, as you said, there's so much messaging at this time of year. I mean, hell, Tennessee was holding on to the guys that they weren't taking Cam Ward until they canceled the Shedeur Sanders private workout that was supposed to take place today because they don't want to waste anybody's time anymore. But what is the most off-the-wall thing that you've heard about how this draft might go down?
It's always the quarterbacks, right?
Sure.
You know, and this class is no good. It's Kenny Pickett's year. We just talked about that. But there's a scenario where we have 4 quarterbacks go in the first round, right? We just talked about Jaylen Milroe, and I think I'm very confident that a quarterback is not going Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. No one's going 2 or 3. I think Cleveland is dug in on. I'm hearing Travis Hunter, but it won't be a complete shock if it's Abdul Carter. And whichever one of those 2 is sitting available at number 3, I think that's where the Giants are going. What's interesting to me though is there are some more people in the. I don't want to oversell it. There's a couple people in the league with NFL teams that have similar or better grades on Jackson Dart than Shedeur. And Shedeur Sanders for all this time is he going 2 to Cleveland, 3 to the Giants? And I've been saying all along, I think we're looking at more like, and I don't believe it's the Jets at 7 or the Raiders at 6 based off some other intel. But what if one of those teams is interested in Jackson Dart? What if Dart goes before Shedeur? And then, I don't know, I look at like 6, 7, and 9, and all of a sudden you got Geno Smith, and so we're all taken care of in Las Vegas, and the Jets got Justin Fields, all taken care of in New York. But are they? And for how long are they? So if their evaluation's higher on one of these guys than maybe we think, wouldn't it be a good time to bring in a quarterback and develop them, especially if you're if you're a new regime with the Jets and the organization hasn't had a good long-term quarterback and what are we talking about? Joe Namath, maybe? So I don't know. I think that 6 to 9 range is going to be fascinating because it's kind of going to be chalk in the beginning. We know Cam Ward's going 1. We know Abdul and Travis are going 2 and 3, whichever order. Feel really good about the Patriots if they don't trade out. They're going offensive tackle, probably Will Campbell at 4. Excuse me. Then it's Jacksonville. They're going defensive line. Is it Mason Graham from Michigan, defensive tackle, or is it edge Jalen Walker? We'll find out. And most people think it's, and myself included, it's probably going to be Ashton Ginty, the running back from Boise State, goes 6. But somewhere in there, that 6 to 9 range, there's going to be a curveball, and it may be a team trading in. There's been a lot of quarterbacks flying around in the last week or 2 weeks. If you kind of read some of the reports and talk to people in the league, from teams that are all over the board, including the Browns now and the Giants now, getting a lot of meetings with the second, like the Jaylen Milroes, the Tyler Shucks, the Jackson Darts. So I think it's going to get interesting because we may have a big move up from one of those two teams into the first round, or just a slight move up, and maybe it's Jaylen Milroe. So that's where it's kind of fascinating to me.
Todd, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule, especially this time of year. We've so enjoyed the podcast with you and Mensch, and the McShay Report, of course, is must-read Mock Draft 3.0 coming your way in the very near future. Our executive producer worships the ground that you walk on, so he was very excited that you were coming out of the show today.
I appreciate the support, and always good to come on and talk to some people who are passionate about ball. So hopefully we'll get to talk soon.
Absolutely. Take care, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
That's Todd McShay with us on 104.5 The Zone. Look at Bert back there. He's blushing. He didn't want to. I was like, you sure you don't want to ask Todd a question? You've been excited about this Todd McShay interview for a week at this point.
Big Boss Bert works in the shadows.
God, he was so handsome. Did you get him on the stream? He looks even better live.
Oh, he's still there. Stop blushing. We're a professional radio show.
You talking to Todd? Is Todd blushing? Is he still on the Zoom?
No, maybe.
He's waving at the camera. Stop it. Stop it.
So we'll look forward to having a lot more quality guests talking about the draft and the draft process, and looking forward to doing the live show with you guys and Greg Cosell on May the 2nd. The tickets are going faster now that it is a quarterback that you are destined to draft with Cam Ward at the number 1 overall pick. People have been snatching up those install live tickets. Get them now at 1045thezone.com before they are gone today. Last call for phone calls. If you got them, 615-737-1045 is the number. Oh, somebody in the chat just pointed out that James Rodriguez announced the Nicholas Petit Frere pick. We should have asked him about that, if he regrets it.
Needs redemption.
If he wanted to run back and take the card away and be like, no, give me somebody else. Update the polls. Coming up next, I'm Buck Risings, 1045 The Zone.